Karen calls a black woman a scammer. She's the widow of a firefighter who's raising money for someone else. Karen Delaney wasn't exactly a people person. She liked rules, structure, order. She didn't like surprises, and she especially didn't like people who disrupted what she called the flow of decency. So when she pulled into the parking lot of Willow Grove Market that Sunday morning and saw a table set up near the entrance, she was already irritated. At the table sat a black woman in a simple gray hoodie, jeans, and a navy ball cap. There were signs taped to the front of the folding table. Help a hero's family. All proceeds go to burn. Victim Housing Fund, honoring Captain Eli Watkins. Next to the woman were jars of homemade jam, small crafts, and handmade thank you cards. A donation box sat at the edge of the table. Karen narrowed her eyes. Scam, she muttered under her breath. These pop-up things always are. She marched past without making eye contact, but couldn't shake the discomfort. Her inner alarm had been triggered. It wasn't guilt, it was suspicion. When she came out with her grocery bags, she saw the woman talking kindly to an elderly man, handing him a small jar of peach preserves in exchange for a $20 bill. That's when Karen snapped. She stomped over, her keys jingling in her clenched fist. "Excuse me," she said sharply. The woman turned, calm and poised. "Yes?" Karen crossed her arms. "Do you have a permit for this?" The woman blinked. "The market manager gave me permission for today." Karen scoffed. "Right. And what exactly are you raising money for again?" "For temporary housing for burn victims and their families," the woman said. "It's part of a community initiative." Karen cut her off. "You don't look like someone who runs initiatives. I've seen scams like this all the time. Use a sob story, tug at heartstrings, take the money and run." Gasps echoed from shoppers nearby. A few people stopped mid-step. The woman stood up slowly. Her voice didn't rise, but it grew colder. "I'm not scamming anyone. My husband was Captain Eli Watkins. He died in the line of duty during a refinery explosion last year. This table isn't for me. It's for the family of another firefighter who just lost his legs pulling 3 kids from a burning house." Karen blinked. "You expect people to believe all that?" Someone behind Karen muttered, "Lady, you need to stop." But Karen didn't. "You people always find a way to play the victim." That's when a teenager nearby, phone in hand, whispered, "She did not just say that," and began recording. By that evening, the video had already racked up over 900,000 views. The caption, "Karen harasses firefighter's widow, raising money for burn victims." The comments were relentless. "She said you people, in public." Imagine accusing a widow of scamming while she's helping another hero. Karen strikes again, but this time, karma's coming. Within 24 hours, Karen's HOA received over 60 emails demanding she be removed as the community outreach coordinator. A petition circulated calling her behavior a disgrace to everything this town stands for. The local paper covered the incident using a screenshot of the woman's face, calm, composed, next to a close-up of Karen mid-accusation. Karen tried to defend herself on Facebook. "I only ask questions. Everyone's so sensitive these days. If someone's really legit, they shouldn't mind being asked." The post backfired spectacularly. Even her own niece commented, "Aunt Karen, sometimes the best way to honor a hero is to shut up and listen." What finally pierced Karen's bubble wasn't the backlash. It was the envelope that arrived in her mailbox 2 mornings later. No return address. Inside was a folded newspaper clipping, a memorial for Captain Eli Watkins. Below it, a handwritten note. "Karen, I've heard worse than your words. Fire doesn't care what color you are. My husband never asked who needed saving. He just ran toward the flames. I didn't raise money for myself. I did it for another firefighter, Jason Lee. He saved 3 children. He's still in the hospital. His wife hasn't slept in days. You may never understand what sacrifice feels like, but I hope someday you'll understand what service looks like. Ano, Dana Watkins." Karen read it 3 times, and for the first time in years she cried. Karen didn't leave her house for 3 days. She stayed offline. She ignored the calls. But that letter, those last few words, wouldn't leave her mind. "I hope someday you'll understand what service looks like." She looked up the name, Jason Lee. A GoFundMe page showed a photo of him in the hospital, half his body wrapped in bandages, his wife holding his hand. Karen didn't just donate. She asked to visit. At first, Dana said no. But then, one Saturday morning, Karen showed up outside the firehouse where Eli had served. She brought nothing but an apology. Dana met her by the truck bay. She didn't smile. Karen held her ground, though every nerve inside her was screaming to leave. I'm not here for forgiveness. I'm here because I saw myself clearly for the first time, and I hated what I saw. Dana looked at her for a long time, then finally said, "You can't undo what you said, but you can choose what you say next." Karen nodded. "Then I want to help. I don't want to be part of the noise. I want to be part of the rebuilding." Dana crossed her arms. "Start by showing up. We've got another fundraiser next weekend. Come early, stay late, and listen." Karen showed up. She handed out flyers, collected jars, swept floors. She didn't talk much, but she listened. She heard stories of bravery, pain, loss, legacy. She learned how Captain Eli had carried a child 3 blocks in 100-degree heat, how Jason Lee dove back into a house after the roof had already collapsed, how Dana, after burying her husband, started a support group for widows of first responders. Karen wrote a public letter of apology, published in the local newspaper. "I once thought bravery wore a uniform and stayed silent. I now know bravery can sit behind a folding table, smiling through grief, asking nothing but kindness in return. I judge someone because of the color of her skin and the strength of her presence. I was wrong. Dana Watkins, you are more heroic than I ever knew how to see." Months later, the community center was renamed the Eli Watkins and Jason Lee Hero Fund Pavilion. Karen helped paint the sign. At the ribbon cutting, Dana spoke briefly. Then, to everyone's surprise, she handed the mic to Karen. Karen stood before the crowd, nervous but steady. "I'm not the hero in this story. I was the lesson. But sometimes lessons lead to change. And I've changed. If my ignorance taught this town anything, I hope it's this. Don't judge someone you don't know. Don't speak when you should listen. And never ever mistake grief for a scam." Applause filled the square. And for once, Karen didn't feel small. She felt human. Karen called a black woman a scammer. But that woman, Dana Watkins, was a widow, a warrior, and a witness to true courage. And through her grace, she didn't just protect a firefighter's legacy. She sparked a transformation in a stranger's heart. Because dignity speaks loudest when judgment shouts. And sometimes the deepest healing begins with the harshest truth. The end of one and